Welcome back to the No Limit Crypto channel. So in this video we are going to take a look at Polkadot. Polkadot is still one of the strongest movers in the market. There's just two small things that I think we need to look at and be aware of. I'm going to tell you guys all about it. If you enjoy this daily Polkadot and other cryptocurrency videos, please consider liking and subscribing. That helps me out massively. Let's get right into it. So what has happened since yesterday? We had a nice move up. We touched our new trend line. I have adjusted the trend line from yesterday. So in yesterday's video, we had a trend line, this upper trend line here. But as we had so many touches of this lower trend line, I think this is the more important one right now. So I'm going to remove the upper trend line. For now, it doesn't exist anymore. And actually, our channel has now turned into a rising wedge. But there is nothing to be concerned about. This rising wedge, you can see that's a 19-degree angle. That's a 18-degree angle. So it's a really tiny rising wedge. The closing of the wedge is actually far away above the all-time high, so there's nothing to be concerned about yet. We might see the price and volatility tightening up, and at that point we're going to have to consider what is going to happen next. If we start seeing that happening, I think we are still going to break to the upside, as we are in such a strong uptrend right now. These bearish patterns that are forming do actually most often break to the upside in an uptrend. It's pretty much that simple. So there's nothing to be concerned about yet, but in the future we are probably going to have to look at that. But I said there's two things we need to look at. The first thing that I think is more of a good to know thing as we are moving this strong is that there is actually some resistance ahead. So we obviously have the $40 mark right here, which is going to be strong resistance most likely, but we have this nice channel slash falling wedge, rising wedge. So I don't think there's nothing to be really concerned about there, but we have entered obviously at $35, this 61.8 fib line, or this range between 61.8 and 78.6. And this is one of the stronger resistance points of the fib lines. So there will be some resistance in this zone right here. Right in this zone. There is going to be some resistance, but we are moving so strong. So none of these things really concern me that much. We might see some small corrections, but there is nothing to be worried about basically. The more concerning thing, and it's also just a good to know concerning thing because it hasn't actually yet happened. I'm not predicting the future here. I'm just being aware of that something might happen. So we need to go to the daily chart. So here on the daily chart, I want to focus on the RSI for a minute and the price around these levels. I might actually even put us over here because I don't think, there's no fib line, or we'll take away the fib lines and leave the trend lines on the other chart. So what happened before? We had a high on the price, a high on the RSI, we created the next high, and we had a bearish divergence. We saw a pretty big correction to the downside, and now we're moving up again. We know Polkadot is moving super strong, so we are recovering from that bearish divergence, and this was the market manipulation, so it was a combination of things. But what I'm looking at right now is obviously we are creating a higher high again, but the RSI is not really keeping up right now. I'm not saying that this is going to happen, and I would mostly be looking at the daily chart, not the 4-hour chart, because I think the 4-hour charts bearish divergences are just signs of us going back down to test the support line, the support trend line. But here, if we form this bearish divergence on the daily chart, we might have a bit of a larger pullback. But if we have a larger pullback, I'm actually expecting the same thing as is in the last bearish divergence. So a big pullback down, pretty fast also, but also a really, really quick recovery. That is what I'm expecting. And I'm gonna go to the other chart again and just draw a possible, or this is a possibility that this could happen if we form that bearish divergence. So I think if we now form this bearish divergence, I think we might have possibly one last pump in us and create a higher high again. And obviously with that comes also a possibility of a new bearish divergence. But at that point, I think we are going to hit the 40, maybe even the 78.6 line at 41, and come back down to 61.8, and after that move back up. So that is the likely scenario. That is the more optimistic scenario, obviously, in case of the divergence. The worst case scenario is actually not that bad. Again, we have a little bit of a smaller move up. We come back down here to the 50% and the $30 mark, and after that we start moving up. So obviously this is a worst one, but again, we are moving so strongly right now, and I think we are really lining up a larger move. I think we're going to accelerate this move to the upside, and we're going to blast through the all-time highs at some point. So I don't think any hurdles that gets thrown at us, we're just going to go past them like they are not there. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. This was all from me. Peace out.